Hebrews, Hebrews. This is Prophets of Awakening. It's our Women's Advanced Bible Study night, 1st September 2022. We're going to pick up where we left off in First Kings for our Bible reading later on in class, chapter 7 and 8. So the master knows that don't know, you can check out our videos on Prophets of Awakening. It's a lot of information given. The videos will connect dots for you and bring you into the truth of scriptures. So I'm asking you to like, share, and subscribe to Prophets of Awakening and hit the notification button. It would be greatly appreciated. Shalom and welcome to our Women's Advanced Bible Study. We're going to do our moment of silence, our prayer, psalms, some women's help or information, current events, a little need to know information. Then we'll just a Q&A and we'll go into our Bible reading. Okay. This moment of silence is for the Lord of hosts, our Redeemer, and all that they're doing, all he's doing to bring about our prophesied deliverance from the lands in which we were scattered about 2,500 years ago. Oh Lord, we come before thee at this hour, praising you and honoring you because of the position both in heaven and upon the earth, a position in which the Creator Yahweh have given unto thee. And through your spirit and counsel, oh Lord, we have awakened. And we have awakened to know who we are as a people and who you are as our Savior and Redeemer. We are thankful for all that you have done, and we are eagerly searching your scriptures out that we may be in the right place at the right time upon your arrival to this planet. Oh Lord, we pray to you that you continue to let your light shine down upon us in spirit and in truth. We love you. We seek you daily, oh Lord. There's none else to save us besides thee. We see you in the affairs of the world, and we faithfully await your deliverance. Peace be unto you. Okay.
Hallelujah. Yes.
Might want to read the Psalms or read it. Okay. Some of these Psalms 50. God is Yahweh is the judge. The mighty God, even the Lord, has spoken and called the earth from the rising of the sun upon the going down thereof. Out of Zion, the perfection of beauty, God has shined. Our God shall come and shall not keep silent. A fire shall devour before him, and it shall be very tempests round about him. He shall call to the heavens from above to the earth, that he may judge his people. Gather my saints together unto me, those that have made a covenant with me by sacrifice. And the heavens shall declare his righteousness. For God is judge himself. Selah. Hear, O my people, and I will speak, O Israel, and I will testify against thee. I am God, even thy God. I will not reprove thee for thy sacrifices or thy burnt offerings to have been continuously before me. I will take no bullock out of thy house, nor he goat out of thy fold. For every beast of the forest is mine, and the cattle upon 1,000 hills. I know all the fowls of the mountains, and the wild beasts of the field are mine. If I were hungry, I would not tell thee, for the world is mine, and the fullness thereof. Will I eat the flesh of bulls, or drink the blood of goats? Offer unto God thanksgiving, and pay thy vows unto the Most High, and call upon me in the day of trouble. I will deliver thee, and thou shalt glorify me. But unto the wicked, God saith, what hast thou to do to declare thy statutes, or that thou shouldest take my covenant in thy mouth, seeing thou hatest instructions, and casteth my word behind thee? When thou sawest a thief, then thou consented with him, and hast been partakers with adulterers. Thou givest thy mouth to evil, and thy tongue frameth deceit. Thou saidst and speakest against thy brother, thou slanderest thine own mother's son. These things hast thou done, and I kept silent. Thou thought that I was altogether such a one as thyself, but I will reprove thee, and set them in order before thine eyes. Now consider this, ye that forget God, lest I tear you in pieces, and there be none to deliver. Whoso offereth praise glorifieth me, and to him that ordereth his conversation aright will I show the salvation of God. So that was Psalms 50. Right? Anybody have any comments on it? So we see right
I
here.
go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to point out verse 3. You talked about that last night, which also referenced in Exodus. Verse 3, our God shall come and shall not keep silent. A fire shall devour before him, and it shall be very tempestuous round about him. So to me, that also refers to in Exodus, I think. Where it talks about the burning bush. I mean, we know what that fire can feel like, you know, and we know what fire is. So we don't want to, be around, you know, nothing like that.
Right.
Hmm.
Yeah. So on that same note, if you, this is one of the things that once the truth of the matter of how everything was set in place in the beginning, uh, be revealed to the person. Like I said, then the scriptures come alive. So based off of that same thing, when they on Mount Sinai and Yahweh is talking to Moses, he says, "Remember this day uh, that you saw me on the mountain, right? And this great fire." So evidently, he ain't the great fire because we see, like I said, we see who lit on the bush, right? And then we see who the fire that was in the front of them when they got pinned down at the Red Sea. That same fire moved to the back to the rear and set itself in between the Israelites and the Egyptians. And we know Yahweh was up in the cloud, so the great fire was down leading them in front of them. So we know what that is. Okay, yeah. So anybody else? Okay, so we're gonna go to some. We're gonna do our women's health. Anybody got it? Yeah, you want to do your women's health?
Yes, sir. Shalom, everyone. I'm going to talk about the health benefits of apples. Not only are apples juicy, delicious, and crunchy, they also offer you a huge array of health benefits as well. What's even better is that you can eat an apple in so many different ways, which can ensure that you never get tired of them, from making a dessert to having a quick snack. They are they are perfect for the occasion, and the health benefits of apples are plentiful. Apples rank high on nearly every list about health foods and can be anywhere year round. Being made up mostly of water, they are easy for your body to digest and are also packed full of essential nutrients. Here are 7 impressive health benefits of apples. 1, it reduces your risk of dementia, stroke, and diabetes. They improve brain health. They lower cholesterol. The fiber that is found in this fruit can naturally lower the cholesterol levels in your body, which can help protect against cardiovascular diseases. It helps with healthy digestion, boosts your immune system. Vitamin C, antioxidants, and protein, all found in this juicy fruit, can boost your immune system, making it easier to fight off illness. This will also help you feel less weak and will improve your muscle tone. The fiber contained in them helps with oral health. I did not know this one. When you eat an apple, it helps clean your teeth and gums in an all natural way. The fiber helps with the teeth cleaning, and the antibacterial properties found in each apple help keep bacteria off your teeth and gums. It helps decreases risk of obesity. Each apple you eat is full of water and fiber, and the two of those together make you feel less hungry and reduces your appetite. Not only that, but this fruit is also burned quickly by your body, preventing any of the apples from turning into stored fat. Okay. Apples are delicious, juicy, crunchy, and nutritious. The health benefits of apples are plentiful, and you will benefit in more than one way each time you eat one. I'm going to read a verse out of Zechariah. I'm going to read Zechariah 2 in verse 8. For thus saith the Lord of hosts, after the glory had he sent me unto the nations which spoiled you, for he that toucheth you toucheth the apple of his eye. That's Zechariah chapter 2, verse 8. And that was the health benefits of apples.
Okay. Yeah, I appreciate that information. Let me see. Shalom, sister. Shalom, bro. Okay, so with that said, we're gonna go into our current events, and we got a couple of them. Let's check it out.
Europe's worst nightmare is coming true. Winter is around the corner and their biggest gas pipeline has been shut, the Nord Stream 1. It was Vladimir Putin's trump card against Europe, a card that he has used before. The pipeline was first closed in the month of July. Russia said it was carrying out repair works. After 10 days, the gas flow resumed. Now they've done it again. Russian power company Gazprom has closed off Nord Stream 1. Their excuse is the same as July, repair works. Gazprom says this is temporary. They say the pipeline will reopen 3 days later, but Europe cannot take that chance. Let me tell you why. Nord Stream 1 is the biggest gas pipeline between Europe and Russia. It transports 55 billion cubic meters of gas. You cut that off and you plunge Europe into darkness. That's what Putin is counting on. After Europe imposed sanctions on Russia, he began choking their gas supply. First, it was reduced to 40% of full capacity, and since July, it's 20%. So what did Europe do? They began filling up their gas reserves. They reduced consumption and diverted supplies to their stock. But that process is still not complete. The EU's gas storages are at 79% capacity. Germany is at 83%. To fill the rest, they need gas from Nord Stream 1. Vladimir Putin knows this. So he played the trump card. He shut off the pipeline. Where does that leave Europe? For now, their reserves should be enough. After all, temperatures are still high in Europe. The heating season has not yet started. German officials feel their country is better placed than the last time.
We do not really understand the technical need for this renewed maintenance from Russia. But in the meantime, Germany is now better prepared. We have filled the storage facilities better. We are getting gas from Norway, Holland, Belgium, soon France. We are saving gas, and in this respect, I assume that we will be able to cope with this for the time being.
Well, the last part is key. We'll be able to cope for the time being. It does not sound like a solid energy strategy. The fact is, Europe needs alternatives. It cannot rely on Russian gas supplies during the coming winter. If they do, there will be shortages. So what options do they have? The European Union is proposing an emergency intervention. The plan has two parts. The immediate goal is to bring down energy bills. The long-term goal is to change how the energy market works. Let's deal with the first part, bringing down bills. European gas prices are going through the roof. They're 12 times higher than last year. Inflation hit an all-time high of 9.1% in August. Both these problems can be attributed to the same cause, Russia's gas warfare. To solve this crisis, Europe has limited options. Number one, they could cap energy costs. Both Spain and Portugal are already doing this. They have placed a legal limit on how high the energy costs can be. Just one problem. The strategy must be pan-Europe. If not, suppliers will just export to countries without a price cap. Option two is import restrictions. Europe could decide to limit the price of Russian gas imports. But again, the problem is obvious. Why would Russia agree to such a cap? They would much rather burn off that energy. In fact, they're already doing this. A Russian gas plant near Finland is burning off huge quantities of natural gas, almost $10 million worth of gas every day. Option number three is windfall taxes. Europe could take a slice from the profits of big oil. They can easily afford it. Norwegian firm Equinor paid $3 billion in dividends last month. France's Total Energy saw their income triple. So the windfall tax is a viable option. Europe could use this extra money to subsidize energy for consumers. Now, those are the three immediate options for Europe. What about the long-term option? Now, that is a lot more complicated. Right now, Europe's electricity market is based on wholesale prices. It means every type of producer bids into it. The nuclear plants, the windmills, the gas plants, all of them. But the final rate is based on gas. Now, usually, it is the most expensive source of energy. Now, why would Europe design such a strange system? After all, green energy is a lot cheaper. The electricity generated from wind is less expensive than the power generated from gas. Yet both are sold at the same rate. What explains this? The idea was to incentivize green energy by selling at higher costs. Green producers could make more profits, and more profits equals more investments. That was the whole thrust behind this plan. But today's situation is completely different. Green energy is still as cheap as it was in 2021, but gas prices are 12 times higher. Now, do you see the problem here? I'll explain with an example. Assume that you produce 1 unit of solar power for $1. 1 unit for $1. You can also produce 1 unit of gas power, but for $10. Now, ideally, those 2 units should have separate costs. But that's not the case in Europe. In Europe, the final price will be decided by the gas producer, hence the problem. The European Union is hoping to change this on September 9th. Their energy officials will convene a special meeting. They're expected to announce some big reforms. How big? Well, that depends on how united they are. As for Russia, their gas warfare is not ending anytime soon. Gazprom just posted a profit of $41 billion in the last 6 months. Imagine that, $41 billion. So much for boycotting Russian gas. The fact
Okay. Any comments on that? Okay.
The world is going through the most severe shortage of energy supplies we have ever seen in modern times. The imbalance between supply and demand is pushing prices to absolutely astonishing levels and sending many major economies to the edge of a disaster. Natural gas supplies in particular are shrinking all across the United States and Europe after Russia's aggression on Ukraine resulted in a series of Western sanctions on Russian exports. But while Western nations suffer from energy scarcity and populations face energy poverty, the Kremlin and Beijing continue to profit with record high prices. In fact, a new report reveals that China is now aggressively reselling Russian liquefied natural gas to energy-strapped countries in Europe and all over the world, effectively circumventing sanctions and helping to boost costs up 700% in some places. A rush for energy is now here, and the supply shock is likely to only get worse from this point on. That's what we're going to expose in today's video. But before moving on, please give us your support by leaving a thumbs up and subscribing to our channel so you can stay up to date with the most important news. Now, China is currently experiencing a historic economic slowdown that's leaving the country with a surplus of natural gas, given that factory production continues to decline. But according to a new Nikkei report citing data from research firm Kepler, Beijing is now reselling its excess supplies to European countries, which have been struggling with extensive shortages and soaring prices. Boosted by cargoes from China, Europe's imports of liquefied natural gas jumped 60% year-on-year in the first half of 2022, the report says. Since the first quarter, the Chinese economy has been losing steam due to its strict zero-tolerance health policies and the collapse of its giant property sector. Economists think it is likely to fall well short of the government's aim of 5.5% growth. The downturn has left some Chinese companies with unusually large reserves of natural gas, and they've been able to export those leftover supplies to countries that are currently confronting a critical energy crisis. Nikkei estimates suggest that more than 4 million tons of Chinese LNG have probably been resold, accounting for roughly 7% of Europe's imports in the first half of the year. Local media uncovered that Sinopec, China's state-owned energy giant, has sold 45 cargoes of gas on the international market so far this year. Meanwhile, Russia has already pocketed $24 billion from selling energy to China and India in just 3 months following the burst of the Ukraine crisis, showing how higher global prices are.
Okay.
The limiting efforts by the US and Europe to punish President Vladimir Putin, Nikkei highlights, adding that the bans have sent prices for alternative supplies through the roof and spurred crippling inflation that threatens to send major economic superpowers to the brink of a meltdown. Over the past 3 months alone, China spent $18.9 billion on Russian oil, gas, and coal, almost double the amount a year earlier, the latest customs data show. Meanwhile, India spent $5.1 billion in the same period, more than 5 times the value of a year ago. That's an additional $13 billion in revenue from both countries compared to the same months in 2021. China is already buying essentially everything that Russia can export via pipelines and Pacific ports, explained Lori Malifeta, lead analyst at the Center for Research on Energy and Clean Air, who has been tracking Russian energy flows since the conflict broke out. India has been the main buyer of the cargoes out of the Atlantic that Europe doesn't want anymore. Although Europe continues to reject Russian energy exports, Sinopec data shows that China has been reselling Russian liquefied natural gas shipments to European countries. SCMP analysts revealed that in the first 6 months of the year, China's natural gas import volumes increased by 28.7%, with the value surging by 182%. On top of that, Gazprom recently announced that the supply of Russian pipeline gas to China had jumped by 63.4% in the first half of 2022. At the same time, the company has sharply cut deliveries to German markets, triggering rationing and widespread economic turmoil. In essence, it means that Russia has surpassed Indonesia and the United States to become the country's fourth largest energy supplier so far this year.
Okay. So if you're paying attention, you can see right here what they're doing. Russia and China have been cornered the market, and they got America in a pickle. And they didn't cut off all the gas to the west, to the European countries, and then they turn around and selling this gas right here to India, which is part of the BRICS, to India and China, and then they turn around and turn and sell it to the Western countries, and they making all the money. And they got us over here. We in a jam because they are playing with the shipping industry. They're playing with that. Got that all in a jam. Got all our prices jacked up. So we in an economical war, and it seems like nobody don't know it. We in all our war right here, but it's just not with weapons. Okay. Any comments on that? Okay. Yeah. But for those that didn't know, we got Biden he addressed the nation tonight, called the Soul for the Nation. I want to play a little bit of.
I should say tonight, President Biden will deliver a primetime speech at Philadelphia's Independence Hall for what the White House describes as the continued battle for the soul of the nation. And a new Wall Street Journal poll tonight finds Democrats are entering the midterms in better shape than before, boosted by independents. Here's CBS's Nancy Cordes.
It's an unusual topic for a presidential speech, the, quote, battle for the soul of the nation. The White House says that soul is under assault by the far right.
The MAGA Republicans are the most energized part of the Republican Party. They just don't respect the rule of law.
White House officials cite recent armed attacks on federal law enforcement, egged on, they say, by violent rhetoric from some MAGA office holders.
If our election systems continue to be rigged, then it's going to lead to one place, and it's bloodshed.
The White House singling out Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, who last week said this about Dr. Anthony Fauci.
Someone needs to grab that little elf and chuck him across the Potomac.
Democracy, typically an abstract issue, has rocketed to the top of voters' concerns, too. 7 in 10 of them describe voting and elections issues as very important this fall.
Absolutely. I think the state of our democracy is in peril.
Lisa Deeley chairs the Philadelphia Elections Commission. She got death threats in 2020 after Trump lost the state.
It has changed the way I behave. It has changed my behavior.
How so?
I don't really like to go places by myself anymore.
Speaking in Scranton, Pennsylvania tonight, House Republican leader Kevin McCarthy insisted it's the other party that is pitting people against each other.
We must change direction in Washington before it is too late.
President Biden is giving this speech from Independence Hall because it's the cradle of American democracy. And aides say he's giving the speech now because even as we head into the November elections, there are still so many Americans who deny the outcome of the last election. Nora?
Yeah, when I saw that right there, it reminded me, when you understand how these people operate, that evidently it's some stuff going on behind the scenes they're not really talking about. And I think it's surrounding that FBI and raid on Mar-a-Lago, because they said that the extremist activity, white supremacy activity, all that increased after that happened, and those QAnon people and all that. So they had to have that same uptick in response right before January 6th. So them learning from that, they, you know, they prompt them to have Biden to talk about this tonight. Like I said, it's some in the works with these people, the same ones that bum rush the White House, and it's got them on alert, on notice, but they're trying to do it in a way not to panic the people. That's just from me looking at it. You know what I'm saying? Anybody else got any comments on that? You get a chance, you might want to check out that address that he did tonight. It's going on right now, matter of fact, live. Okay, everybody good on that? Yeah, so I got some need to know information right here. Let me do that.
Most Aristocums share this common problem: their social detachment from the general populace they claimed to represent. At the root of their influence were wealthy whites, and at the root of their feelings about the average so-called Negro was arrogant antipathy, no different than the attitude taken by their white masters. After all, this class of Negroes were the privileged children of white slave masters, all of a sudden turned champion for black rights. The air of insincerity permeated this bunch. With all this being said, there were some who made it into politics without completely alienating themselves from the average person.
Yeah, so while you're watching this, I mean, keep in mind that I keep on saying over and over again that we're dealing with a DNA situation. So these people, if you get an ounce of Negro blood in you, they say you're Negro, but that's not how it goes in the scriptures. You notice these people right here, it's the Boule, Freemasons. These are so-called our leaders they gave us, but they didn't ascend from us according to the scriptures, because a child goes by his father's lineage, no matter who he is. How he come out looking, that he goes to his father DNA. His father carried the seed. So you look at the situation as far as all that we understand now and finding out about Africa. You know, it's just all of a sudden it came out. Now we being connected. We find out this information of Africa. It was hidden from us, but it was by these folks right here. They're using their own seed line to keep us in check, because we're looking to them as they part of us, but they're not part of us. And like I said, all you got to do while this is playing, look at these people, look at their makeup. Look at their, like I said, it's a DNA thing. We familiar with it.
And Prince all Freemasons played this vital role within black communities, being far more well connected to the pulse of the people through the church, as opposed to education, establishing a solid base among the indigenous, who weren't seen as privileged or elite.
I would often ask individuals about some of the high-profile celebrities. So, for example, when I was in Philadelphia, I would ask people, was Bill Cosby a member of the Black upper class in Philadelphia? And almost uniformly, these old families said, absolutely not. He's an entertainer. So that was another aspect that I found within this group, was that they didn't like entertainers. They didn't like people who had made money through sports. They wanted people as a part of their group who had gotten money through medicine, through law, through business. So it was a very, very exclusive group, and I mean that in every sense of the word, where they were quick to exclude anyone who they felt was new. And since you folks are from the DC area, you know, in Washington, you are new, at least among this community, if you have not been here for 3 or 4 generations.
Hiram Revels of North Carolina was a barber, AME minister, college president, soldier, recruiter, Freemason, and the first Negro to be elected to Congress. Revels was born free to ancestors who were Croatoan Indians, and his mother apparently of some Scottish ancestry. He claimed his ancestors had always been free as far back as his knowledge extended. Revels lived a well-traveled life in his early years, first traveling to Indiana to study at Beech Grove Quaker Seminary, then to Drake Seminary in Ohio before being ordained at 18 years old, becoming an AME minister. Hiram was elected to the Regional Elder Council by the age of 22. Quote from house.gov. Revels traveled throughout the country carrying out religious work and educating fellow African Americans in Indiana, Illinois, Kansas, Kentucky, and Tennessee. Although Missouri forbade free blacks to live in the state for fear they would instigate uprisings, Revels took a pastorate with an AME church in St. Louis in 1853. Noting that the law was seldom enforced, however, Revels later revealed that he had to be careful because of restrictions on his movements. I seditiously refrained from doing anything that would incite slaves to run away from their masters, he recalled. It being understood that my object was to preach the gospel to them and improve their moral and spiritual condition, even slaveholders were tolerant of me. Despite his cautiousness, Revels was imprisoned for preaching to the black community in 1854. Upon his release, he accepted a position with the Presbyterian Church in Baltimore, Maryland, working alongside his brother Willis Revels, also an AME pastor. Hiram Revels was the principal of a black school in Baltimore and subsequently attended Knox College in Galesburg, Illinois, on a scholarship from 1855 to 1857. He was one of the few black men in the United States with at least some college education. When the Civil War broke out in 1861, Revels helped recruit 2 black regiments from Maryland. In 1862, when black soldiers were permitted to fight, he served as the chaplain for a black regiment in campaigns in Vicksburg and Jackson, Mississippi. In 1863, Revels returned to St. Louis, where he established a freedmen's school. At the end of hostilities, Revels served in a church in Leavenworth, Kansas. While traveling to Kansas, Revels and his family were asked to sit in the smoking car rather than the car for first-class ticket holders. Revels protested that the language in the smoking car was too coarse for his wife and children, and the conductor finally relented. Revels served in churches in Louisville, Kentucky, and New Orleans, Louisiana, before settling in Natchez, Mississippi in 1866. Before the Civil War, fewer than 1,000 free black Mississippians had access to basic education. Thus, leadership from freedmen such as Revels became vital to the Republican Party for rallying the new electorate in the post-war years. It was through his work in education that Revels became involved in politics, taking his first elected position as a Natchez alderman in 1868. He entered politics reluctantly, fearing racial friction and interference with his religious work. Rebels lived in the spotlight for several decades, acquiring status and influence. But over his time in politics, his popularity began to wane as a result of his support of the Democratic Party, who were notorious in committing election violence against black voters. During a Senate hearing, Rebels testified to not having any knowledge of any violence used against black voters during the 1875 election campaign. Whether his statements were true or not, his denial of voter violence didn't sit well with his constituency. Hiram Revels is one of the most notable Prince Hall Freemasons in American history.
Birthplace of a branch of Masonry that seeks to refute the tired old allegation that the order is only for tired old white men. We are entering a room that echoes with the history of American oppression and liberation. Prince Hall Lodge, named for a Revolutionary War soldier from Massachusetts, founder of what remains a separate, self-segregated offshoot of the Masonic family tree.
Okay. Any comments on that? So what you see is these so-called Boule people are the ones they put in, that you see every day but it's a system in place. Unbeknownst to a lot of black folks, but it's a system that's in place to keep the masses of the blacks in check. And not only that, the knowledge. It's the understanding, the true knowledge and understanding of our history, who we are and where we come from. It's a system they have in place. And like I said, they got their own understanding of how things go, but it's not according to the scripture. He says that when a man father a child, the child belongs to that man's nationality. No matter like I said, no matter how the baby come out looking or whatever, but his house, he's gonna go to that man, the father's house, which is his lineage, and he's gonna take on his characteristics. So contrary to how he look, he's gonna be that father's people. So, but we going by eyes and grouping people by eyes, and then they ain't how to operate. Yeah. Any comments on that? Okay, so I'm opening it up for Q&A and comments on anything anybody want to talk about. You know, comment questions on. They want some answers on. They want to interject some knowledge.
Shalom. I just want to say that the class you did last night on Clubhouse, Thinking Like a Hebrew, was a really great topic because a lot of us, we do not think like a Hebrew. So even with watching this video you just played in other videos, and part of thinking like a Hebrew is that you have to change your mindset. So looking at videos like this about the Freemasons, Eastern Star, and so forth, you have to look at that and understand what it's all about. Right. That, exactly. They're not working for us.
Right.
So yeah, I just wanted to say that because, listening to you last night, even with reading, the scriptures and things like that, it's hard to understand who you truly are if you're holding on to JC.
Exactly.
You will never get that understanding.
Right. And not only that, it's based on what I just showed you and the system that they have in place. When the truth do come, that's where you're gonna run to. And that doesn't happen to me over and over again. They run to the local pastor. To these folks. When you breaking down truth to them, and then they run to them to ask them. They pastor. When he don't know what the hell he don't know nothing. He told because he done been indoctrinated. He went to seminary. You can't be no pastor unless you get the that card, the pastor card. So in order to get the card, you got to go to seminary. So when you go to seminary, they're gonna push Jesus down your throat. You can't have no sermon. You can't have no sermon on Sunday unless you in with Jesus. That's the motto in the seminary. Preach Jesus. Every sermon you preach, Sunday school class, or Bible study, whatever. When you finish with Jesus. You preach Jesus. So you run into the same people that oppress you when you run to the pastor. Run into them. They told. They're not gonna say. Even if they know, they ain't gonna tell you that Jesus ain't real and you don't exist and acknowledge that information, because he locked into a system that you don't know how to get out of.
Right.
So it's like you running from a lion and run off in a cave with a bear. You know what I'm saying? You in a pickle, and that's why I try to put out as much information as I can to build a foundation. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
You're doing a great job. Very helpful.
Okay. So with that being said, I was gonna play this right here because this, to me, this is real.
Hello and welcome to the podcast PFI Talks, which is brought to you by Prague Finance Institute and the leading Czech economics research center, Sergei EI. It is my pleasure to welcome world-renowned economics professor Jeffrey Sachs. Hello, sir.
Great to be with you.
So let's turn to the first block of our questions. Since many economists lately have been slashing their forecast for global and regional GDP growth, especially when they're looking forward into the next 2 years, and all, given the still unclear impact of COVID policy that were implemented globally 2020, and also the most recent impact on the global economy by the Russian-Ukrainian conflict. So if you are looking at these sort of events that have been spanning over the past 2 years, what is your prediction regarding the global economic development, growth and inflation for the next 24 months? And what do you think policymakers should be doing about sort of navigate those rough waters that seem to be ahead? And maybe you don't think that there are any rough waters ahead.
No, we're definitely in rough waters. We're in a crisis. The crisis will get worse in the coming months, and it could get far worse. We're experiencing stagflation, meaning that there are rising prices at the same time that output is falling in many parts of the world. Europe is already in a downturn. The United States is entering a downturn. China is in some kind of economic downturn. So this is a global economic crisis. And so I regard the overall economic situation as bad as I've seen in decades, worse than in 2008. We're likely to experience some very significant shocks in the months ahead. Of course, the most crucial question is what happens to geopolitics? Does war spread? Does it intensify? Does it diminish? Is there a return to the negotiating table? Do the US and China come to blows which would disrupt global society? Do they find a way to talk with each other? These are the questions that we're facing right now.
It's true that this is all also happening on the backdrop of an immense debt leverage that the global economy what do you think is the optimal solution to the current global debt overhang? And by debt, I mean private,
Everything.
public, everything. I'm just rounding up. I don't even want to think about the figure because it's too many zeros. So what's the solution to that so it doesn't threaten the world's global financial system and stability?
It's a great question. Again, in the last stagflation that we had in the late 1970s, what happened was that the inflation in the United States reached around 10% per year, and the Fed, under a 6'7", a 2-meter chairman of the Fed, Paul Volcker, cigar smoking, tough guy. He said, we're going to end this inflation. And he put interest rates up to 20%. And by the time it was over, all the developing countries were bankrupt. It was unbelievable. Well, it made my career because I spent the next decade helping countries get out of debt crisis, which had laid them completely flat. So if we go into this just with a naive financial squeeze right now, we'll end up with a lot of carnage, meaning a lot of countries in default, a lot of very high inflation rates. You look at a country like Turkey. Now, they have not managed their economy properly for years, but the inflation rate is reaching 100% per year right now. Argentina, the inflation rate is reaching 100%. There will be other countries experiencing this kind of runaway inflation. Maybe Ukraine is going to have a hyperinflation by the end of this crisis. Of course, we don't know.
But unlike 30 years ago or 40 years ago, actually, well, almost 50 to be exact, is the developed world, are the developed economies and their financial system insulated from this impact that could be coming again from emerging markets or developing economies?
It's interesting, of course, in the 2010s, because the European Central Bank did not do a very good job under its president, Trichet, in the early years of the last decade. Greece nearly went bankrupt. And it wasn't so far for Ireland, Spain, Portugal, and even Italy.
And
so the
Slovenia.
Eurozone and Slovenia, the Eurozone almost collapsed. And it required Draghi's deft hand to prevent that collapse. Basically, the European Central Bank had to act as a lender of last resort to prevent a disaster. So
okay, so you're probably saying, well, why am I playing this? So, like I was saying before, you see how that the guy was saying how it's not just a just everything that's going on is not just centrally located in a certain place. It's a global thing, right? And so you hear me talking about we talk about the end times, and then you would see things like people can't find them that like, for example, you say that they can control the weather. Well, the average person thinks you're ludicrous because they're saying that these people can't control the weather. So you're saying that you're taking away from the creator. And what he doing? You're saying that these people, the creator, where the creator is in this. He didn't want to put out the prophecies pertaining to the end times. So with that being said, and I want to show you why I'm showing you this video, and I want to show you how that works when it comes to these end time events. So I was kind of reading a little bit of it last night. So I'm going to put it in perspective for the person that's struggling trying to understand it. So I'm in Ezekiel 30, let me get 2, I think it is. Let me get it. So, okay. Let's see. Yeah, so I'm gonna start I'm in chapter Ezekiel 32, right? I'm gonna read chapter or verses 1 through 12. It says, and it came to pass in the 12th year, the 12th year in the 12th month, in the first day of the month, that the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, came to Ezekiel, Son of man, take up a lamentation for Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and say unto him, Thou art like a young lion of the nations, and thou art as a whale in the seas, and thou comest forth or with thy rivers and troubleth the waters with thy feet, and follow there are rivers. Thus said the Lord God, I will therefore spread out my net over thee with a company of many people, and they shall bring thee up in my net. Then will I leave thee upon the land, and I will cast thee forth upon the open field, and I will cause all the fowls of the heavens to remain upon thee, and I will fill the beasts of the whole earth with thee. So when you break down this first part of it, these first 4 verses, he have a problem with the Pharaoh and the system that's in Egypt. And I told you the origins of that system. That system came from the 200 angels. They came through the portal at Bethel, and they went from there, they went to Mount Hermon. Then on Mount Hermon, they made a pact to go and defile themselves with women. And so nobody talks about the geographical location, but the geographical location where they went was Egypt. That's why Egypt got this pantheon of gods, because it's a pantheon that came to them, those angels, 200 angels. So that's the makeup of the whole Egyptian system. So Pharaoh was the head of all that. So he told Pharaoh, you just like a whale in the ocean. Well, a whale has to live in the ocean, stay alive. So he said that I'm gonna take you out of the ocean and put you on and throw you on the ground, right? So that's suicide for a fish. So he's gonna take him out the ocean, throw him on the ground, and that's where he's gonna watch him, flopping around like a fish do, till he die. And then after he die, he said, I'm gonna bring the fowls of the air and come and, eat your flesh, devour your flesh. So he said he's gonna do away with it, right? So now we're gonna read starting 5 to 11. It says, and I will lay thy flesh upon the mountains and fill the valleys with thy health. I just read that he's gonna take him out of the ocean, put him on land, and then he's gonna watch him gasping for air and watch him die. Then he's gonna bring the birds to pick him apart and eat him, eat the flesh. 6. And I will also water with thy blood the land wherein thou swimmest, even to the mountains, and the rivers shall be full of thee. And when I shall put thee out, I will cover the heavens and make the stars thereof dark, and I will cover the sun with a cloud, and the moon shall not give her light. So we know that's the day of the Lord. And I told you it's more than one day of the Lord. When you got a oppressive system in place on the earth, and the Most High allow it to go for a certain time, then he shut it down. But when he get ready, the day of the Lord comes, everything get dark, overcast, and he bring the drama, right? So then 8, all the bright lights of the heavens will I make dark. That's what I'm talking about. Over thee, and set darkness upon thy land, said the Lord, right? And I will also remember when the final plague that he put on Egypt, it got dark. He killed all the firstborn. So anyway, I will also vex the hearts of many people when I shall bring thy destruction among the nations into the countries which thou hast not known. Yea, I will make many people amazed at thee, and their kings shall be horribly afraid of thee when I shall brandish my sword. This is the point I'm making right here. He says, when I shall brandish my sword before thee, and they shall tremble at every moment, every man for his own life in the day of thy fall. So this the day of Egypt's fall is the day of the Lord, which is the day that he brought judgment on that particular geographical location and system that was in place. As he said, the day that thy fall, right? Then verse 11, for thus said the Lord God, the sword. See that? So he told you he bring the sword, right? And then verse 11, for thus said the Lord God, the sword of the king of Babylon shall come upon thee. So he's operating. He got these prophecies that he got prophesied, but he using the king of Babylon is his sword. That's his sword. So when you understand that he got a sword now, and that sword is these Edomite bankers. You know, so what they doing? They manipulating all this. They crashing all these countries. It's been a setup. It go all the way back to beyond the Knights Templars and all that. They pros at it. And so what's their objective? Their objective is they want to rule the world for 1,000 years. And they didn't set up all the nations to do that. Now they collapsing them. They behind the scenes collapsing them. But it's the Most High doing it. But he got he went and got the pros, the ones that know how to do it. So he went and got them. He got them. They the ones doing it. Just like right here, he went and got Nebuchadnezzar. And when you understand the story of Nebuchadnezzar, you have to go to the Apocrypha in the book of Judah. Nebuchadnezzar started out, he was a nobody. And he was getting ready to fight against the greatest army that was pretty much that been on the planet was the Assyrian army when they existed. Right before Nebuchadnezzar came on the scene. He was getting ready to fight them. And nobody didn't believe he was going because he was a no-name. Nobody thought he was going to do anything. So he sent letters out for everybody to come and help him, and they wouldn't. But not understanding that, like right here, he said he chose Nebuchadnezzar. Just like he chose David. There was nothing nobody could do. He chose David. And he chose Moses to come in the land of Canaan to wipe out the Canaanites. Ain't nothing nobody could do about it. So he's chosen these Edomites in these last days. These Illuminati bankers. And they collapsing everything. That's his sword that's being used. They got another agenda, not understanding that they're being used by the Lord of hosts, by Yahweh, the Lord of hosts. And they know how to set a system up, and then they know how to bankrupt it and bring it down to the point from a global perspective. We got examples because of Bernie Madoff and George Soros. They ain't the only two. They pros at that. You know just how to do it. And that's what they're setting up. So that's the sword, Yahweh's sword that we're dealing with right now in these final days. Bringing everything they know how to, like I said, they're the ones behind the all of those big major companies that left here back in the late 90s and sent them to China. They the ones built China up. They took the blueprint from America, which was all these big time corporations that Caterpillar and Boeing and all that, and send them to China. And now we reaping the benefits. We seeing the results of that because of it. They was already looking ahead to what we're looking at now. And they did all that to do what they're doing now. They want to rule the world for 1,000 years from Jerusalem. And they set all these nations up to collapse them. The sword of the Lord. Okay. Anyway, with that being said, so you want to watch that what I was playing. That was Jeffrey Sachs. We're in a crisis, and it will get worse. That's the name of it. You want to watch it. Okay. Any comments or question? Okay, so I'm gonna go into book of 1 Kings when we left off I read chapter 6 and 5 and 6. So I'm gonna read chapter 6 and 7 and 8. Okay, in 1 Kings. Okay. Okay. Says, and it came to pass in the 4th year, the 480th year, after the children of Israel were come out of the land of Egypt, in the 4th year, Solomon reigned over Israel in the month of Ziph, which is, okay, I read that. Let me go to 7. Okay, I read that all the day. I'm in chapter 7 of 1 Kings. But Solomon was building his own house 13 years, and he finished all his house. He built also the house of the forest in Lebanon. The length thereof was 100 cubits, and the breadth thereof 50 cubits, and the height thereof 30 cubits, upon 4 rows of cedar pillars with cedar beams upon the pillars, and it was covered with cedar above upon the beams that lay on 45 pillars, 15 in a row. And there were windows in the 3 rows, and lights were against the lights in 3 ranks. And all the doors and posts were square with the windows. The lights were against the light in 3 ranks. And he made a porch with pillars, and the length thereof was 50 cubits, and the breadth thereof was 30 cubits. And the porch was before them, and the other pillars and the thick beams were before them. Then he made a porch for the throne where he might judge, even the porch of judgment. And it was covered with cedar on one side of the floor to the other. And his house where he dwelt at another court within the porch, which was of the like work. Solomon made also a house for Pharaoh's daughter, whom he had taken to wife, like unto his porch. All these were of costly stones, according to the measure of a huge stone, showed with sawed with saws within and without, even from the foundation unto the copy, and so on the outside toward the great court. And the foundation was of costly stone, even great stones of 10 cubits, and stones of 8 cubits. And above were costly stones after the measure of the huge stone, and cedars. And the great court round about was with 3 rows of huge stone, and a row of cedar beams, both for the inner court of the house of the Lord and for the porch of the house. Okay. And King Solomon sent and fetched Hiram out of Tyre. He was a widowed son of the tribe of Naphtali, and his father was a man of Tyre, a worker in brass, and he was filled with wisdom and understanding and cunning to work all works in brass. And he was to Solomon, and he came to Solomon and wrought all his work. For he cast 2 pillars of brass 18 cubits high apiece, and a line of 12 cubits did compass either of them about. And he made 2 chapiters of molten brass to set upon the tops of the pillars, and the height of one chapiter was 5 cubits, and the height of the other was 5 cubits. And nets of checker work and wreaths of chain work for the capiters which were upon the tops of the pillars, 7 for the top of one capital and 7 for the top of the other capital. He made the pillars and the 2 rows round about upon the one network to cover the capitals that were upon the top with pomegranates, and so did he for the other capital. And the capitals that were upon the tops of the pillars were of lily work in the porch, 4 cubits. And the capitals upon the 2 pillars had pomegranates also above, over against the belly, which was by the network, and the pomegranates were 200 in rows round about upon the other capital. And he set up the pillars in the porch of the temple, and he set up the right pillar, and he called the name thereof Jachin. I don't know the name. And he set up the left pillar, and he called the name of that Boaz. And upon the top of the pillars were lily work. So was the work of the pillars finished. Okay. It says, and he made a molten sea, 10 cubits from one brim to the other. It was round all about, and its height was 5 cubits, and a line of 30 cubits did compass it round about. And under the brim of it round about there were knobs compassing it, 10 in a cubit, compassing the sea round about. The knobs were cast in 2 rows, when it was cast. It stood upon 12 oxen, 3 looking toward the north, 3 looking toward the west, and 3 looking toward the south, and 3 looking toward the east. And the sea was set above upon them, and all their hinder parts were inward. And it was a hand's breadth thick, and the brim thereof was wrought like the brim of a cup, with flowers of lines. It contained 200,000 baths. 2,000 baths. And he made 10 bases of brass, 4 cubits was the length of one base, and 4 cubits the breadth thereof, and 3 cubits the height of it. And the work of the bases was on this manner. They had borders, and the borders were between the ledges. And on the borders that were between the ledges were lions, oxen, and cherubim. And upon the ledges there was a base above, and beneath the lions and the oxen were certain additions made of thin work. And every base had 4 brazen wheels and plates of brass, and 4 corners thereof had undersetters. Under the labors were undersetters molten at the side of every addition, and the mouth of it within the capitals and above was a cubit, but the mouth thereof was round about the work of the base, a cubit and a half, and also upon the mouth of it were great gravings with their borders, 4 square, not round, and under the borders were 4 wheels, and the axle trees of the wheels were joined to the base, and the height of a wheel was a cubit and a half cubit. And the work of the wheels was like the work of a chariot wheels, their axle trees, and their naves, and their felloes, and their spokes were all molten. And there were 400 setters to the 4 corners of one base, and the undersetters were of the very, very base itself. And in top of the base was there round compassed a half cubic high, and on top of the base of the ledges there was borders thereof were of same. For on the plates of the ledges thereof, and on the borders thereof, he graved cherubims, lions, palm trees, and according to the proportion of every one, an addition sound round about. After this manner, he made the 10 bases, all of them at one casting, one measure, and one size. Then made he 10 lavers of brass. One laver contained 40 baths, and every laver was 4 cubits, and upon every one of the 10 bases, one laver. And he put 5 bases on the right side of the house, 5 on the left side of the house, and he set the sea on the right side of the house, eastward over against the south. And Aaron made the lavers and the shovels and the basins. So Aaron made an end of doing all the work that he had made that he made King Solomon for the house of the Lord. And the two pillars and the two bowls of the captors that were on top of the two pillars and the two networks to cover the two bowls of the capitals which were upon the top of the pillars, and 400 pomegranates for the two networks, even 2 rows of pomegranates for one network covered the two bowls of the capitals that were upon the pillars, and the 10 bases, and the 10 labels on the bases, and on one seat, and 12 oxen under the seat, and the pots, and the shovels, and the basins, and all the vessels which Hiram made to King Solomon for the house of the Lord were of bright brass. In the plains of Jordan did the king cast them in the clay ground between Succoth and Zarthan. And Solomon left all the vessels unweighed because they were exceedingly many. Neither were the weight of the brass found out. And Solomon made all the vessels that pertained unto the house of the Lord, the altar of gold, the table of gold, whereupon the showbread was. Okay, and the candlesticks of pure gold, 5 on the right side and the 5 on the left, before the oracle with the flowers and the lamps and the tongues of gold, and the bowls and the snuffers and the basins and the spoons and the censers of pure gold, and the hinges of gold, both for the doors of the inner house and the most holy place, and for the doors of the house to wit of the temple. So was ended all the work that King Solomon made for the house of the Lord. And Solomon brought in the things which David his father had dedicated, even the silver and the gold and the vessels that he put among the treasures of the house of the Lord. Okay, so I mean, you know, it would do you good to go back and read that again on your own. But you see, all this stuff was deal with gold and brass and all that. So now you see why all these kings from these other countries said trying to come into Israel, because of that. It was a wash pot with all types of gold, silver, and all kinds of stuff that was in that temple. And like I said, Zedekiah made that mistake of showing it to the Chaldeans. That's what brought Nebuchadnezzar in there. And they saw that. They saw he was flaunting his power and showed them all that stuff. And that's what brought him there. It was a place like no other. From with all the it wasn't just that he had gold, silver, and all that, but he had got this guy right here, Hiram, and he was artificial brass and iron. He had made all this. He had wrought this great work and designing all this stuff inside the temple. So it just blew people away when they saw it. A lot of people don't comprehend that part of it, but yeah, that's what that was. People all around had heard about that temple and all the wealth and all that was possessed within that temple. Okay, in the comments.
You see, reading this chapter that Solomon had, excellent taste. You know what I'm saying? He had the best when it came to building.
Right.
Yeah, marvelous. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. David, that gave him all that.
Oh yeah, he had.
Right.
Man.
Okay. So everybody good? Yeah, I'm gonna play this right here, and then we're gonna go out. Okay.
Things I tell myself about my skin. I like it this way. Remember that time I questioned why God molded me out of tar and sky? Me neither. Remember that time I met that girl who thought bleach would lighten all the burdens off her back? Me too. We too often educated by fools, A fool will say, your skin does not make you a god. Well, my belief in it certainly does. My black is a boastful believer. My blackness is a silent scripture. It is all these workshops to all these children about all this self-love, even when I tumble out feeling all this helpless. Like the best way to teach a dark child how to love themselves is to be a walking example of a dark woman who loves herself. I am still walking. My feet have not tired today. Some boys call you chocolate. Some boys think you cake they can drool over then devour. Some boys don't think at all. See you some back door, some exotic pond they can dip in only when it's warm enough. They always want you warm enough. Like a black woman don't got enough cause to get cold sometimes. Think the darker you are, the more you growl, the more you suck. The darker you are, the more you know how to spread those hips. Things I tell myself about my hips. If I keep on dancing like this in the mirror every day, I swear on my mama they're going to eventually balloon on their own. You've been skinny for a long time. They say real black women supposed to be more equipped, need to prove she got something he may want to hold on to. I grew up in a city where all the guys whistled at all the girls who ain't look like little girls no more. So I started walking like a woman on purpose. He chased me down an alley with a glass bottle, all because I said no. So I stopped walking like a woman on purpose. I bought you some waist beads today. You are worthy of gifts. You are worthy of her hips large enough to swallow your own. You are worthy of his working hands gripping onto your curves. You are allowed to call them curves. You are allowed to call them what you want to. See your body the way you want to. Tell them that if this here ain't black and woman enough, well, my black and woman enough body just don't want you. Then roll your eyes. After all, these eyes got reasons. These eyes have grown weary of avoiding an image that's just trying to find its light in a world trying to block it. Bitter people don't like the good fruit. They'll call you names until you catch them. Have you thinking you are half of the whole that you are, like I ain't been right for a long time, like I ain't worthy to be touched with the lights on, with somebody seeing all this skinny as succulent and sister at the same time, without having to pretend I am anything less than deep-rooted, without having to peel back this skin for you. I am not here for the non-believers. I am not here for those who cringe when they see me seeing all of myself. This bodily prayer is strictly between my sight and the sun and all the good folk who enter the presence of this church with no other words on their tongue but amen.
Okay. I want to say shalom to everybody. I'll see y'all tomorrow on Clubhouse at 8 o'clock for our Clubhouse room. With that being said, I want to say shalom, shalom, and another shalom.
Shalom.